So, Ben, Chris Hipkins doesn't have the international recognition that Jacinda Ardern had. Tell us more about New Zealand's new Prime Minister.
That's exactly right, Paul. So the new Prime Minister, in his first press conference to New Zealand, pitched himself as a down-to-earth guy. And I think that's really the message that he's going to be trying to deliver ahead of the October election. He likes Coke. He likes sausage rolls. He understands kitchen table issues. This is the sort of narrative that he's trying to push. He's a former police and education minister, and very importantly for New Zealand, he was the face of their COVID-19 response, regularly appearing alongside Jacinda Ardern at press conferences during 2020 and 2021. So he's very recognisable for that. And given that the COVID-19 response was one of the more controversial aspects of Jacinda Ardern's time as Prime Minister, that may either help or hinder new Prime Minister Hipkins, depending how people viewed that response.
So he's got 9, maybe 10 months, depending on how you want to count it, in the run up to the election. How is he likely to fare?
Well, so as I sort of alluded to in my first answer, he's really going to be focusing on, kitchen table issues, as he says. He's going to be focusing on the economy, on rising inflation, on New Zealanders doing it tough, and he's going to be removing some of the more controversial policies that were dragging down Jacinda Ardern's approval rating, and that is the Labour Party's approval rating as well. Currently, they trail the opposition centre-right National Party by a not insignificant margin a few months out from the election. Now, Hipkins is trying to present a very different picture from Jacinda Ardern. I mentioned previously that Ardern was a very popular figure on the world stage, and that often encountered some criticism back home. Hipkins is very different. He's not known internationally. He doesn't have that star power. And while that might hurt him in some respects with that lack of charisma that some experts are talking about, it will mean that come the election, he might be able to present a more, everyday man who understands the average voter.
Yeah, in terms of that, I mean, Ardern's departure may come as a shock to an international audience, but in New Zealand, her popularity had been slipping. Taxpayers Union Courier poll had her as a negative net favourability for the first time just before she stepped down. And a lot of the commentary has been around focus on issues such as co-governance, particularly around New Zealand's water supply, and a move away from, as you described, bread and butter issues. There is a cost of living crisis in New Zealand at the moment. So how do you think that switch might impact some other countries that were looking at co-governance policies, particularly here in Australia?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be an interesting message for Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in Australia, who right now is kicking up his campaign for an Indigenous voice to Parliament. That is a body of Indigenous elders who would advise the Australian government on policy matters affecting Indigenous Australians. I mean, this is a big platform of Albanese. His policy for this term. He's burning a lot of political capital on it. So if New Zealand backtracks on some of that, if it moves away from it, it's bad timing for the Australian leader, given that although Australia and New Zealand often are out of sync with each other on terms of political leaning. For the past few years, Australia's had a centre-right government, while Jacinda, obviously, Prime Minister Ardern, has been in power. It's not a good look if the country right next to you, the country most famous for its handling of Indigenous issues, starts to move away from embracing that right when you were trying to push it on your home turf.